Back with part 2 of the Week 8 preview here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. Colts and Texans. I mean, Colts side, if this was Joe Flacco,
Right.
we're learning more about Anthony Richardson. It's not great. Now, from a fantasy perspective, Tim Tebow couldn't throw. He's a top 10 fantasy quarterback. Anthony Richardson is better than that. He has problems, though, when it comes to completing passes. But still, fantasy-wise, can still be that top 10 fantasy quarterback. But let's talk about the Colts. Jonathan Taylor returning to practice, full disclosure, recording on Thursday morning, but he did practice Wednesday. Would they ease him back in? Would they use Goodson a little bit more, Sermon more as a receiver? Because it seems like Goodson isn't getting them much work, if any, as a receiver. So let's talk about this,
Right.
Sigmund, and what the Colts can do in this important divisional game. Colts can be there at the end regardless of who's at quarterback. They can be there when it comes playoff time.
Yeah. In fact, if they win this game, they're in first place, tied for first in the standings. Well, maybe I guess they split the series. But what's funny, Cease, is this was a division that we would have talked about last year as the exciting young quarterback division.
Right.
And this battle for the division lead is going to be Joe Mixon against Jonathan Taylor. It's the year of the running back.
Mm-hmm.
So as you laid out for Anthony Richardson, let's forget about fantasy. For fantasy, in quarterback, 2 quarterback superflex leagues, he has a high ceiling. He has a low floor. Probably you're not going to mess around with Richardson in 1 quarterback leagues, although I could see some scenarios where you would. And for fantasy, you're going to play Taylor and that's it. Assuming he's going to play, and sure, it would make sense to hold him back from this ankle injury for this game. But this is a referendum game for Anthony Richardson, I think. That being said, we talked about this on the couch with Paul Charchian. I do agree with Charch's take that Indy is Richardson or bust this year. And I don't mean bust like the season. I mean, this is their guy, and they're going to learn everything they possibly can about him. So I don't think we're going to see Joe Flacco as a season saver here. But I do think this is going to be a really meaningful game for what happens in the second half of the year for Richardson. And maybe we see something get going with Michael Pittman. Maybe we see something get going with Alec Pierce downfield because it's there in the Shane Steichen offense downfield if Richardson can get it dialed in.
Yeah, if he can get it dialed in. And then CJ Stroud, Mama said there'd be days like this, right? Like, okay, a little rougher outing, maybe a little easier outing this week. And then who's he going to and how much Joe Mixon? I am getting some fantasy questions of like Joe Mixon. I believe one trade to a CMC owner was for DeAndre Hopkins and Jordan Mason. And my response was like, that seems a little rich for Mixon. We love him. Certainly they love him. They're going to use him up, Bloom. He's already been hurt once this year. I
Yeah.
hope he stays healthy forever, but it's probably not going to happen. So let's talk about it because a lot of people are thinking about what to do with Joe Mixon.
Oh, I think Mixon's locked in as a running back 1. And while I understand the injury fears for any running back, the injury was a hip drop tackle, whatever that is. And he came back looking exactly as good as he did in week 1 against these Colts when he ran for 150 yards. So this is going to be a Joe Mixon game. And again, what happened? Well, the Bengals were running him out of shotgun, and Houston is giving him those runs with the quarterback under center. So he's got ahead of steam. And otherwise, Stephon Diggs is a high floor wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. If there's going to be a receiving touchdown, he's likely to get it. He had 2 in the first meeting. Tank Dell, a boom bust wide receiver 3 flex. But again, almost the Tank Dell take is tied into Anthony Richardson and the Indy offense. Because if the Indy offense doesn't put pressure on Houston's offense to be more than just a Joe Mixon in a cloud of dust, then we may not see a lot from Tank Dell, although he did drop a touchdown last week. And for the Texans, this is a chance to take control of this division. But at the same time, the Colts know that this is their chance to control their destiny in the division.
What do the Saints know?
Oh, gee.
I suppose I could just toss it to you like that. I mean, we know Alvin Kamara is banged up, right? He's got the new big money deal, so
Right.
he's not getting traded anywhere. We know Spencer Rattler, I'll be kind, Bloom, needs work.
Yeah.
We know their receivers have been just so thoroughly banged up. So it's Saints and his Chargers up next. Saints traveling to LA, and they're licking their wounds, but they've had 10 days now to prepare for
Yeah.
this one after losing the Broncos on Thursday night last week.
Yeah, the Saints just extending that stay in salary cap hell, but showing some loyalty to their players. Alvin Kamara revealing he's playing with a broken hand for the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. A lot of that we're never
Oh,
going
yeah.
to hear.
Yep.
And that's it. I mean, it may be Taysom Hill if he's back. You're going to play Taysom Hill as a tight end. And maybe Chris Olave as a wide receiver 3 flex. But like you said, it's Spencer Rattler going to get the start again. And, for a third day pick rookie, he doesn't look overwhelmed. Again, he's doing something that we haven't seen Saints quarterbacks do in a long time, which is play outside of structure, make plays outside of structure. So there's that. But what a strange season this has been, where those first 2 games really were like a dream that the Saints woke up from, and now they're cruising to a top 6, top 8 pick. But they're getting other players back this week. I think Cesar Ruiz on the offensive line. Again, Olave should be back this week. I think Pete Werner on the defense. But remember, they lost Paulson Adebo to a broken femur, by the way. That could be a life-threatening injury. A broken femur. You don't
Mm-hmm.
hear that one. The largest bone in the human body. You don't hear that one very often. So this is really a truly star-crossed, cursed kind of season. And the New Orleans Pelicans lost their big acquisition to a broken hand on the first day of the NBA season. So I don't know, something down here in the water or the air or both in New Orleans.
Put it in the air. Start the Chargers defense first and foremost. And then the Chargers side of things. All right. So we know what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. Also, just some things to kind of put a pin in.
Mm-hmm.
You had Lad McConkey not on the field on Wednesday. Again, this is Thursday morning when we record. Quentin Johnston did not participate in practice on Wednesday. I even think Will Dissly, right, was a little bit
Mm-hmm.
banged up with the shoulder. So some injury situations to watch, but there's really like one guy you're
Right.
looking to, and that's J.K. Dobbins.
It is Dobbins with the workload here. Saints tackling going downhill. This could be a big breakout game. A breakout game in the sense that Dobbins is the beginning of the workload, but not the fantasy output. But the other thing is, while we were sleeping on Monday night, Justin Herbert almost threw for 350 yards to a pretty anonymous group. Remember, before the season, they have to trade for a wide receiver. They have to draft a wide receiver. They didn't, and Justin Herbert still threw for over 300 yards. It was against the Cardinals, but still. So, as you said, Cease, you're looking at these injuries. Will Dissly also banged up, who caught 8 on Monday night. Maybe this is a Joshua Palmer game. Again, Adebo going out. Maybe this is a Joshua Palmer. Sammy Fehoko, former Cowboy, for those of you in deep dynasty leagues. He's a good size speed prospect who did some things. And hey, this team is trying to make a playoff push. And why not? This would be a fun team to watch go into some place like, I don't know, Kansas City, and maybe pull off an upset. Maybe do something in the wild card round that could shake up the NFL.
Yeah, shaking up things were the Buffalo Bills last week when they got Amari Cooper, this time traveling across the country to face the Seattle Seahawks. So let's talk about those Bills and Amari Cooper, perhaps more of the backfield split, which is frustrating for fantasy GMs. Also, just know Dalton Kincaid, as we watch his practice status, because he was
Axis. Yeah.
limited. That's right, with a collarbone injury. So Bills have some more horsepower, firepower, whatever you want. Bills power, Bison power, right? So yeah, we'll see what they can do on the road against Seattle.
Yeah, I remember learning about Praxis when I started learning about deconstruction, Derrida. I think that Praxis was like a really good deep funk band too, if I remember. Anyway, Praxis. Let's get that one in the fantasy football vernacular. You don't say practice status, just say Praxis. The
Praxis.
question here is, was it just Tennessee? Yeah. Was it just Tennessee's pass defense, or does Amari Cooper really unlock this pass offense? And Cooper was barely on the field like about a third of the time last week. So Cooper's in your lineup. Khalil Shakir has earned wide receiver 3 flex every week. Keon Coleman, a what the heck flex. Although, as JJ Zachariason pointed out, everyone's saying, oh, Cooper is opening things up for Coleman. They weren't even on the field at the same time when Coleman was making those plays. But hey, it's putting Josh Allen in a good mindset. So that's good. And then Dalton Kincaid and Matt Waldman in the top 10. By the way, you should subscribe to Football Guys just to read Matt Waldman's top 10 every week, just for that alone. It's worth it's worth the price. Maybe this could open things up for Dalton Kincaid. We know it's opening things up for Josh Allen. And then, like you said, is there a split here with James Cook and Ray Davis? Because Ray Davis continues to look good anytime he gets the ball. So again, it's that yardstick against the Seattle defense that until last week we would have said is one of the defenses we want to pick on, but not last week. This young Seattle defense pass rush coming on and Seattle coming home to try to say, hey, we are a team to take seriously.
Yeah, we are a team to look at, to kick ass on the wild side, especially at home in front of the 12s. DK Metcalf a little bit banged up. Thoughts and expectations for
Right.
him. Kenneth Walker also a little bit banged up here as well. So Geno Smith and company at home against a potentially higher powered offense. How much do they put their foot on the gas on Sunday?
A lot of Ken Walker. Watch the practice reports. Obviously, if Walker for some reason is out, Zach Charbonnet. We know this offense is going to be focused on one running back. Geno Smith, again, with the defense playing better, he had 28 pass attempts last week. So you want to keep those pass attempts down. If the defense is playing better, they want the running game to regulate things, and especially if DK Metcalf's not out there. MCL injury went from maybe a multi-week injury to maybe he'll play this week. Guessing he's not going to play. It is a late game, so that's going to complicate things. Because if Metcalf's not out there, then Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba become safe wide receiver 3 picks or flex plays. And then Noah Fant also, who's had 2 good games in a row, he becomes a tight end. A what the heck tight end play if you don't have someone to plug in there. But this is a really interesting game because we think of Buffalo as one of the teams that's the class of the AFC, but Seattle can give them a tough game in a much deeper NFC.
A deeper NFC and a bad NFC when we talk about the Carolina Panthers. It's Panthers traveling to face the Broncos. This is Broncos show, Bloom. Let's talk about Carolina. And in talking to Jonathan Cooper yesterday, he was like, they got a really good running back. Okay, yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
This isn't a trap game for everyone. Like the Broncos are riding high after they beat a Saints team that gave up. Okay, and they probably know that. So yeah, they're not going to fall asleep. They got the Ravens ahead, so they're not looking forward to the Ravens. They're looking to kick the crap out of the Panthers. How do the Panthers without Andy Dalton? Thank goodness that his family and everybody's safe from the car accident. But it is going to be Bryce Young. I have
Yeah.
no idea why Dave Canales said that yesterday.
Right?
You didn't have to. Now you know what Vance Joseph, he'd be
Yeah.
like Ice Cube's dad on Friday, like,
Mhm.
right, eating all the pig's feet, eating all the hog maw, like, yes,
Mhm.
just eat it up, man, eat it up. That's what Vance Joseph's going to do now that he knows who the quarterback is. Canales could have waited until Friday, to make the official designation, but he could have had him prepare for 2 quarterbacks all week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and also Dave Canales has been saying, first-time head coach, as much as he can, that he doesn't want Bryce Young to start. So, you saw the interview with Bryce Young talking about preparing. He's like, "Yeah, we're getting ready for the game and doing everything." Like, oh my gosh.
I'm sorry.
So, I mean, I guess they're trying to rehabilitate some sort of trade value for him. They're not going to get as much for him as the 49ers got for Trey Lance at this rate.
Mm-hmm.
So, you play Chuba Hubbard, and that's it. And by the way, for Deontay Johnson, you keep lighting a prayer candle for a trade because Adam Thielen's going to be back soon. His window is open, returning from IR. But Jatavian Sanders, Denver can't cover tight ends, but if you don't have a quarterback who can throw,
Right.
I mean, this is Bryce Young. See, it's almost Halloween, and I think of Bryce Young as like the person we're watching walking into the house, with the lights flickering, Jonathan Cooper, among others, ready to strike.
Yeah, Nick Benito with 5 games in a row with a sack. With one more game, he would tie Von Miller.
Wow.
Who had that on their bingo card? Broncos side, they need to run the ball, even that includes Bo running. And let's get Crunchy Bloom because I don't want to
Yeah.
Bo leave anymore. I want to know with Bo, but we don't know with Bo. But until then, we're just left to watch him run around, miss wide open through receivers. So maybe Sutton gets some looks this week. He's totally not upset about no catches or no targets last week against the Saints. They won 33-10. It wasn't even that close. So, like, going forward, it should be Javonte. But listen, their defense is outstanding. Special teams is outstanding. The offense is bringing up the rear. It's time for Sean Payton to do a little more work there.
Yeah, you mentioned Tim Tebow already in this show, Cease.
Mm.
Imagine going to the playoffs, even winning a playoff game, and not knowing if you have your quarterback. Broncos have been there before. They could be there again. But yeah, Bo Nix is a quarterback 2 superflex this week, has a high ceiling because it's Carolina. Even Marcus Mariota looked good against Carolina last week. And Javonte got to be in your lineup. It could easily be another 2-touchdown game for him. Cortland Sutton, what the heck flex, but also Troy Franklin. I think that's what I'm going to be watching here is Troy Franklin coming on. You have the shower narrative, the connection, and actually getting a chance. And also watching Lucas Krull, who at one point earlier on in the offseason looked like maybe he was going to play a bigger role. But none of this matters. Like you said, Cease, we need Bo Nix to play better as a passer, or we're still not really going to consider any Broncos as more than what the heck flexes in the passing game. But 5-3 through 8 games, if they can win this one, then not many people have that on their bingo card either.
4 games down, 4 games to go. It is the Audible Week 8 preview part 2. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. We got Chiefs and Raiders coming up next. And with the Chiefs, now with more DeAndre Hopkins. And Isaiah Pacheco is back on a treadmill. Just put a pin in that. Put a
Right.
pin in that, right? Depending on how deep your league is. Maybe you don't have an IR spot. Maybe Pacheco's just floating out there on the waiver wire. It's conversation for later, Bloom. But just get excited. I got excited when I saw Pacheco on the treadmill. But the Chiefs are going to play DeAndre Hopkins. What does that look like? And does it help Pat Mahomes look better?
What you hope is as a red zone target, maybe as a third down target, he's not going to help them stretch the field. Okay. And that's still the problem. They know that's the problem. That's what they threw all those resources at this offseason. It's still a problem. But could there be enough value to scratch out? Could this help Patrick Mahomes' value, actually giving somebody who can finish drives in the red zone, maybe get another touchdown or 2 instead of it going to Kareem Hunt? Maybe. Kareem Hunt looking like a league winner right now. He's in our lineup every week. This is funny. This is how fantasy football is. When I say these words as we go into week 8, you might consider starting Patrick Mahomes this week. You might consider it. That's where we are. I'm not saying you need to start Patrick Mahomes, but this would be a matchup. Let's put it this way. If he doesn't do it this week, when are we going to start Patrick Mahomes? Because this Raiders team is circling down the drain. Again, maybe Travis Kelce. Again, you might consider starting Travis Kelce this week. And yet the Chiefs are undefeated. So make sense out of it. I can't. And I certainly can't make sense out of what Antonio Pierce is doing with the Raiders.
Yeah, and the Chiefs were down last year and they won it all. So they're down this year
Yeah.
and they're undefeated and they could go three-peat. And I owe Pat Riley a quarter now. Raiders side, Gardner Minshew in, of course, Aiden O'Connell out a month or so with the thumb injury. I mean, they got Desmond Ritter behind him, but whatever. I mean, Bueller, anybody?
Yeah.
Like,
Bowers,
what are we
Myers.
doing here? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers could be back this week. You could catch 5 or 6 balls, help you out in a PPR league. Alexander Madison is a what the heck flex. At least they're concentrating on one running back, even with Samir White back. And I guess this is a test of, well, Kansas City and the Raiders, no matter what the records are, sometimes the Raiders play them really tough. This Antonio Pierce Raiders team beat Kansas City last year. Zamir White ran for like 140 yards or something. It was during that 4 weeks that got Antonio Pierce hired, if you're wondering how we ended up here. So maybe you bring a little of those vibes back. I mean, maybe this is Las Vegas' Super Bowl. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know this. The game to watch out for is the one we're going to talk about next. In fact, I want the Broncos game to be a blowout so I can just focus on this one, even during the game. Like, I do a post-game show. I don't need to watch Carolina in the second half, but I need to watch. I need it in my veins, Bloom. Chicago, Washington's Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. Let's get it on. And it's Caleb ascending. The stories change so much. We can't go if we're going off the first couple of weeks. Caleb looks like trash. The Saints
Right.
look like the greatest team ever, right? And
Right.
just so much chance. Week 8, baby. And the stories have changed like 3 times this
Right.
season. So
Right.
the story on the Bears and this one against the Commanders, oh, it's just so juicy. I just want to take a bite. I want to live in the juices of this game, Bloom. Is that weird?
Well, it's not weird, but unfortunately, this could be one of those ones where you're ready, you're salivating for the dish to be brought out, and only half of it is actually cooked because Jaden Daniels might not play. We'll see.
Ah,
Marcus Mariota getting the first team snaps, and it makes sense for Washington to be conservative on this one. But on the Chicago side, you're looking at Caleb Williams as a high ceiling play here, as we saw him going into the bye, looking very good. Uh, Now, Dan Quinn does have this Washington defense, ragtag bunch of guys playing better. So maybe they could slow them down. DeAndre Swift rested. Roshan Johnson is assuming it is Mariota. This is a Roshan Johnson what the heck flex game because you would expect Chicago's defense, Chicago's running game. That's what they want to use to win games. Although Caleb Williams, again, going into the bye showing he can close drives with touchdowns to Keenan Allen. What the heck flex? DJ Moore, more of a high ceiling wide receiver too. There's variation there. Roma Dunze, what the heck flex, but we need him to actually hit on one of those before we trust him again. And then, of course, Cole
right.
Kmet, who had 2 touchdowns going into the bye. So he is, at the very least, of what the heck, top 12, top 15 tight end play. And if he keeps doing it, because remember, Justin Fields liked finishing drives with throws to Cole Kmet. He's the biggest guy on the field. And we will see Marcus Mariota. I mean, on a personal level for Mariota, this is a chance for him to earn a lot of money. If he can carry over what he did in the second half against Carolina and look like he can still play and hang on an NFL field against a very good Bears defense, then Mariota certainly will get a lot more looks coming up in upcoming seasons as a bridge quarterback, as a high ceiling backup. And if he can keep them in this game, then that'll be quite a feat indeed.
Now, quite a feat indeed with the commander side. Let's talk about with and without Jaden with a ribs injury. Now, as of yesterday, and I'll circle back around today, Bloom,
Yeah.
it seemed like it was minor enough that, like, okay, he misses Wednesday. We'll see about Friday. So, again, we're recording Thursday morning. Don't know when you're watching or listening to this. First off, thank you. Love
Yeah.
doing the show with my
Yeah.
man, Sigmund Bloom. Get it done. 19 years on the Audible. So, we're going to have to put a pin in this. But as I knew yesterday on Wednesday, it seemed like he'd be okay by Friday. And it's a ribs injury. So it's pain tolerance. It's a flak jacket. It's a shot in the ribs. Like, there's ways to get him out there. Again, Bloom, I want all the juice. So maybe I'm biased, but this is also from people I trust around that team of like, okay, he should be okay by Friday. We'll put a pin in that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And so if Daniels is in, you're a lot more excited to play Terry McLaurin. You're a lot more excited to play Brian Robinson. Maybe even Austin Eckler is a what the heck flex. Although this is a good Chicago defense, and if Daniels isn't in, then we're going to defer to Washington. I mean, I understand why they would be truly conservative when it comes to putting this guy back out there because the last thing you want, because we've seen it now, we saw it with Anthony Richardson earlier this year. If a player who has to play all out is thinking about an injury, then that can make things worse. But we'll see if we're denied this matchup. We have a lot of great number 1 versus number 2 matchups to come. And either way, again, Cease, this one stands for just wait. The story's going to change. Oh, it just changed again.
Yeah, here we go. And it changes. Dallas is hoping things change. Some segues just
Yeah.
write themselves, Bloom. Dallas and the 49ers side. And okay. Rico Dowdle set to handle more after the bye. Definitely needs more touches. Close quote from head coach Mike McCarthy. Head coach for now.
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy. All right. More Rico Dowdle, maybe less. I don't know. It's the Cowboys. They need
Yeah.
all the help they can get in multiple ways. This time on the road against the 49ers, you're going to be pissed off.
Right.
They're pissed off at
Right.
each other. Good
Right.
luck, Dallas.
Yeah. Last year coming out of the bye, Dallas made adjustments to go pass heavy and everything changed until the playoffs and things were the same. But this year it doesn't feel the same. This year it feels like they're ready to throw Mike McCarthy under the bus. They
Mhm.
already are pass heavy and CD Lamb is still not popping off the way he was last year because they don't have a lot of other credible targets. But it does bring Jalen Tolbert into what the heck flex range, Jake Ferguson, you're looking for that high floor play, Rico Dowdle, what the heck flex because if Dallas falls behind, and look, Rico Dowdle's only on the field 40-50% of the time, and they have to have a winning game script. And what's sad about this cease is on a week that we say on this earthly playing goodbye to Fernando Valenzuela.
Mm. And
And
I loved him as a kid, Bloom, and this is why, and I'm glad you give me an opportunity to say this. Like, not being a huge baseball fan, but as a kid, like, loving baseball. Actually, I had a Brewers hat. I don't know why I had a Brewers hat. But anyway,
Mhm.
shout out Frank Schwab, big Brewers fan. But when I saw someone that looked like my Uncle Tony or my
Right.
Uncle Junior,
Right.
right? When I saw a brown person up there, and I'm half Mexican, but like when I saw someone up there that kind of looked like my family as a little boy, that was impactful. So yes, you know, that matters.
Glory, right? Remembering this glory, 'cause I brought it up with Paul Charchian again, but I gotta mention it again because I was only 6 during Fernando Mania. But you remember the images everywhere, and like you said, Cease, it's about representation, and it wasn't Fernando Valenzuela was a child of Mexican farmers, and he looked like the child of Mexican farmers.
Yeah.
And he was that guy, that humble guy, at 20 years old doing that, like a worldwide sensation, captured the imagination of the world. And,
Mhm.
the Dallas-San Francisco matchups used to capture the imagination of the world. Not so much now, as Dallas. Yeah, there was I'm gonna point out also that, someone put together, I think RJ Ochoa put together a collection of quotes of players that left Dallas and talked about how cartoonish, clownish the atmosphere is. They said that when you're in the weight room, it's glass and they have tours going through and they're tapping on the glass and
Yeah, Ben
waving.
DiNucci said people would be like, "Do something crazy," and like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So if you an unserious organization, facing an organization in San Francisco that has serious threats to their Super Bowl window now.
Yes, serious threats, and they are very serious, and they are very pissed off. So again, a motivated Joe's like, "Hey, buddy, I'm staying pissed off so much.
Right, right.
Sorry, Joe. Sorry, Joe. Sorry." But a motivated 49ers team looking to kick ass on the wild side. Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen, we saw going into the bye with Detroit. And I think see we talk about establishing the run and all that other stuff. But one of the things that we don't talk about, and the Chargers fall under this category, is Steelers, obviously. There are teams that still their first goal in every game is to physically dominate you, which then turns into mental, emotional domination. And Dallas is a team that can be dominated. Dallas is a team that can be made into a shy team, which you see what it looks like. It looks like what it looked like when Detroit did what they did to Dallas. San Francisco could, but Brock Purdy. There's questions. You wonder if we've seen Brock Purdy big game hunting. What Jordan Love's been doing. Do you reel that in now? You reel that in without Brandon Ayuk. We'll see about Deebo Samuel. I think this is like give Jordan Mason 30 carries, 35 carries. This is a treat Jordan Mason like he's Derrick Henry in this game. And then who else? Because as I do the projections and rankings every week, sometimes I'll make a note, monitor this player's status. Like, hey, Bucky Irving has a toe injury. If you're thinking about Rashad White, you need to monitor Irving's status. So for every 49ers player, it's monitor Kittle's status and Deebo Samuel's status and Juwan Jennings' status. So lots of variables here. If all three are out, and that's what I think Kittle's going to play. If the two wide receivers are out, now we have Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, two rookies, and it just takes one play. And Dallas's defense they're missing Dan Quinn. Dallas's defense can be taken advantage of. Uh, so let's just say, and this is the night game on Sunday night. So we're going to watch, hopefully, Rap Sheet and Adam Schefter give us some guidance on Sunday morning as we try to figure out who, if any, of the San Francisco pass catchers we can play, and then whether we want to try Brock Purdy if he's throwing the ball to two rookies on Sunday night.
Let's talk Monday Night Football if we have to. But it's Giants and it's Steelers. Giants side first and against that Steelers defense. I mean, probably not a lot on the road
No.
for the Giants. Probably not a lot here, fantasy wise, if you're trying. And there's no buys, right?
Right.
There's no
Right.
bye weeks. So what are you doing starting Giants with any sort of confidence on Monday night when you have no option? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no thanks.
Yeah. In some ways, you may look at, well, of course, you're going to play Malik Neighbors and hope for the best. And you may look at Tyrone Tracy, as you put it, Cease, what Brees Hall did last week against the Steelers might be more about, and the Steelers always have weaknesses to exploit. If talking
Yes.
baseball,
Mhm.
World Series coming up. By the way, the last Yankees Dodgers World Series was the Fernando Mania World Series. Isn't that wild how that comes up again as we're thinking
Very
about
good.
Fernando? But when you think about baseball, you have some of these players like Giancarlo Stanton for the Yankees, where I mean, if you put the ball in the wrong place, they're going to destroy it. But there are holes in the swing. There are holes in the swing of the Steelers defense. Breece Hall exposed some of those holes. We talk about this, and Tyrone Tracy can do a decent Breece Hall impression as far as the kind of player he is. So as a what the heck flex, that's interesting. Now you're trusting Brian Dable. You're trusting the play calling. You're trusting the execution. And then speaking of execution, poor Daniel Jones. Is this another
You're
game where we
expecting
see
Daniel Jones to be Aaron Rodgers.
Right, right. Well, and Daniel Jones also to make it through this game. So yeah, this is tough. And Wan'Dale Robinson's going to get 8 catches for 31 yards. So for PPR leagues, you're going to like that. And for the Steelers, yeah, everything's better. Well, we won't get a good measure this week unless this game's actually close, and then we'll say, oh, maybe things aren't better.
I was talking to league sources yesterday, and we feel, because I believe this, and my buddy felt this too, like the Russell Wilson carriage will turn back into a pumpkin. Not this week.
Right.
Not this week. But soon enough, we're waiting for it. Not happy about it, because again, I wanted Justin Fields in there, but whatever. Mike Tomlin pretty much went rogue with the Wilson decision, because Bloom, let's just say this. There may be players that were against that move. There may be fellow coaches that were against that move. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Total guess.
Yeah.
But Tomlin got the W. He's looking to get another one on Monday night. Prime time, Russell Wilson. And he didn't say his catchphrase. He did have a chance. They gave him a chance after the game last week to say his catchphrase, which I think is win the 7th now. It's so dirty. Does he have gear with that on there so he can sell it? Team 3, everybody. Yeah, I mean, they'll continue to roll this week. It'll stop eventually, but they'll continue to roll this week.
Yeah. Is that a reference? What was it when we were kids, Cease? One for the thumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was one for the other ring finger or something like that. I don't know.
Well, since you have 6, your 7th would go to your middle. One for the middle finger, Russ. Give him the middle finger.
Perfect.
This one's
Go
for you,
trademark
Sean
that.
Payton.
Go trademark that before somebody grabs it. One for the middle finger. I wish I had an old one for the thumb shirt. So what's Russ do for an encore? And 2 quarterback superflex leagues, there could be something there. Najee Harris game script's going to be good here. Jalen Warren, what the heck flex, and George Pickens. What does it say about the quarterback play for the Steelers when Mason Rudolph and late career Russell Wilson revive the value of George Pickens? So there's Deontay Banks. Good luck. Good luck if you're watching this one. I think there might be a World Series game going on instead that you could watch.
Yeah, well, you could watch and have more fun. We have fun together every single week right here on the Audible. He is Sigmund Bloom. I am Cecil Lammey. Make sure to check out all of our YouTube channels, plural. Subscribe to them all. Collect them all. And bring you all this great information for free on YouTube. You want to support the show? We don't do any silly super chats. Jump on over to footballguys.com. First, sign up for that free daily newsletter written by me and Sigmund and Bob Harris and Joe Bryant. Hell of a quaternary. And then, of course, if you really want to support the show, then please subscribe to footballguys.com. So we've got plenty of free content for you. Our paid content is outstanding. Never miss anything from footballguys.com. He's Sigmund Bloom. Follow him on X at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show's at the Audible saying, watch the other videos. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty, baby?